When I was 8 years old, a rich kid, Kaido, transferred into our class. His outfit alone could buy a house, and his shoes were worth 400,000 yuan. The very next second, I saw something unbelievable, a stream of magical bullet comments floating before my eyes. They read, "Why is the toxic second male lead, Kaido, showing up so early? Is he planning to bully the male lead right from the start? The male lead is way too pitiful." Another comment followed. "If the male lead doesn't suffer now, how else would his traumatic childhood shape him into a lonely, love-starved soul? And how else would the female lead, Luna, save him and end up entangled with him forever?" But unfortunately, after they got together, her heart always yearned for Kaido far away overseas, and the male lead? He was nothing but a stand-in for Kaido. I turned to look at Kaido, who had just sat down beside me, utterly stunned. Before I could say a word, he took out his lunchbox and arrogantly ordered, "Go wash my bowl." Yet when I looked into the untouched lunchbox, packed with crispy fried chicken and a full portion of rice, my eyes burned. "Stop spouting nonsense," bullet comments. "He's not some toxic second. He's the bright moon hanging high in the night sky, lighting up the darkness just for me." Chapter 1. The year I turned 8, a classmate named Kaido transferred into our class. His clothes were worth more than a house. His shoes alone worth 400,000 yuan. That same year, all our old wooden desks and chairs were replaced with the shiny new ones we'd only seen in textbooks. Air conditioning and computers were installed in every classroom. Even the strictest dean of students treated Kaido with surprising kindness. Despite the full classroom makeover, young Master Ito remained perpetually dissatisfied. He was assigned to sit next to me. He looked down his nose and said, "Tidy up the desk for me." At noon, some students went to the cafeteria for lunch while others went home. Only I stayed seated. The housekeeper from Kaido's family brought over a delicate gourmet meal. I stared at it in a daze, then gulped down 2 large mouthfuls of ice-cold water, hoping to trick my stomach with a little sleight of hand. The high and mighty heir of a wealthy family only took a few bites before he lost interest and pushed the lunchbox toward me in disgust. He said, "I don't like wasting food. You finish it." Just today I read a proverb, "Food given with contempt." But I was too hungry. I ate the entire meal. Kaido sat nearby, resting his head on one hand and watching me. Once I finished, he tossed over a bottle of bubbling mineral water with disdain and said, "Have a drink, then go wash the box." When I came back after washing the lunchbox, I saw 2 girls gathered around Kaido. One girl rested her cheek on her hand and asked, "Kaido, why are you sitting with Liam?" The other girl chimed in, "You're new, so maybe you don't know. His dad's a gambling addict. People say he even steals money and gets arrested all the time. If the dad's a big-time gambler, the kid's probably a little one. Aren't you worried he'll steal your stuff?" Chapter 2. The moment I held the lunchbox, my hands went ice cold. I stood frozen at the classroom door, only to see Kaido looking straight at me. I instantly wanted to run, to hide in a crack in the floor, to disappear where no one could see me. But Kaido stood up, his tall figure seemed to shine. He frowned and said, "Come here." At that moment, I thought he must be angry I had touched his lunchbox with dirty hands. I quickly placed it back on his desk and bowed my head, stammering, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to hide this from you." But young Master Ito didn't throw the lunchbox away. He just looked at me calmly and asked, "Have you ever stolen anything?" Panicked, I shook my head furiously. "No, I haven't. I really haven't stolen anything. I just..." Before I could finish, Kaido turned to the 2 girls from earlier and barked. He said he hasn't stolen anything. If you're accusing someone, you'd better have proof. If you don't, that's slander, and the police can arrest you for it. The 2 girls were startled and tried to slink away, but Kaido called out, "Hey, apologize to Liam, or I'll report you to the police and have you all arrested." 80-year-olds are terrified of the police, though honestly, I went to the police station often to report things, and they rarely intervened in petty matters. But those girls didn't know that. Frightened, they apologized to me. Kaido looked around while still holding the lunchbox. There was a glimmer of satisfaction on his usually arrogant face. He said, "Liam, starting today, you're my lackey." Chapter 3. After school that afternoon, he tossed all the bread and snacks from his bag into my hands. He said, "I don't feel like eating, you can have them." But that night, I was beaten again by my drunk father. Everything in my school bag was taken by him. Lying on a bed made from cardboard scraps, I peeled open the only piece of chocolate I'd managed to hide. Under the dim moonlight outside the window, the chocolate tasted so sweet, and the moon was so bright. The next day, I came down with a fever and couldn't go to school. That afternoon, while class was still in session, Kaido showed up at my house with the police. My dad was taken away again for education. I was taken to the hospital. Kaido looked slightly disheartened and muttered, "I'm sorry. I don't have the power yet. There's not much I can change." Chapter 4. After being discharged, I returned to school. One day when Kaido told me to complete a whole stack of practice exams for him, I saw the bullet comments again. They read, "Why is the toxic second male lead, Kaido, showing up this early? Is he here just to humiliate the male lead? Why should our male lead have to do his test papers, run his errands? This is a total insult to the male lead's dignity. The male lead is too pitiful." But some comments also said, "If the male lead doesn't suffer like this, how else would his childhood trauma turn him into someone dark and love-starved, only to be saved and forever entangled with the female lead later on?" Reading these, I couldn't help but glance over at Kaido. He wore a perfectly tailored British-style three-piece suit, and the golden watch on his wrist gleamed under the sunlight. Noticing my gaze, Kaido took out his lunchbox and commanded from his high horse, "Go wash the bowl." Looking at the untouched layer of fried chicken and rice inside, my eyes began to sting again. He had bought 2 sets of food, implied, and every day the food he didn't want to eat would be passed to me, always with something filling like bread. Kaido was no toxic second male lead. He's the bright moon hanging high in the night sky, lighting up the darkness just for me. Chapter 5. I became Kaido's lackey. From the spoiler-filled bullet comments, I gradually pieced together the truth. This world was just a stand-in romance novel, and I was the tragic substitute whose wife would eventually regret everything and live in self-inflicted torment. My father was a gambling addict. My mother worked in the red light district. She cheated, got caught by my dad, ran out, and died in a car accident. I had a miserable childhood until I met the female lead and treated her as the only light in my life. But after we got together, she couldn't stop thinking about her god-tier crush who lived overseas, Kaido. And I was just his stand-in. When her real Prince Charming, Kaido, returned to the country, he started targeting me in all kinds of ways. In the end, I died of stomach cancer. Only then did the female lead realize her true feelings for me. Even though she lived a life of wealth and luxury and had countless suitors, she could never forget me. So she chose to stay single for the rest of her life, tormented by guilt and sorrow. But I thought, what they say in the bullet comments is just a story. This is my life. Kaido trained in boxing and martial arts. I stayed close by, handing him water and towels. When I had spare time, I picked up a few moves myself. He basically paid my dad to let me be his follower, and with the money, my dad stopped caring about me. As I read more bullet comments, something strange began to happen. They started changing. Some said, "Wait a second, this plot feels off." Others wrote, "Was Liam supposed to grow up malnourished and end up with stomach cancer? Why does he look like he's getting stronger and healthier? Liam used to be so timid. Now he seems different." And yet others, "Don't worry. It's just that he hasn't met the female supporting lead, Mia, yet. It's all part of the setup. Mia might be bratty at first and clash with the male lead, but later she totally regrets it and follows him around like a lost puppy." On the day of our middle school enrollment, I escorted Kaido to his private school, wiped down his desk, and neatly arranged his school supplies. I was about to leave. After all, I couldn't afford tuition. I didn't belong at a private school like this. But when Kaido saw me walking away, he looked at me in disbelief and snapped, "Stop right there. You're my little brother. Where do you think you're going?" Chapter 6. Kaido paid for my tuition, and I started boarding school with him. Everything seemed to be heading in a better direction. That day, a new student named Mia transferred into our class. The bullet comments exploded. "Here comes the enemy Esta-lover's arc. Mia finally makes her entrance." Some even said, "The male lead really thought avoiding his original school would stop him from meeting Mia. Huh, that's fate at work." Mia may look chubby and soft now, but beauty isn't something that needs defining. Plus, she's a total hidden gem. Once she slims down, she's going to be absolutely stunning. When Kaido saw the homeroom teacher introducing Mia, he couldn't help but curse. He kept grumbling something else, but I didn't catch it clearly. Mia ended up sitting right in front of me. In middle school, students began to hit puberty, and gender awareness started growing stronger. But this awareness wasn't really about physiological or psychological understanding. It was more about power dynamics and conflicting interests. Gone were the days of elementary school-style boys and girls helping each other. Now girls naturally assumed boys should handle all the heavy lifting and would mysteriously disappear every time we had to move desks or change classrooms. More and more boys started refusing to be morally blackmailed. The breaking point came over something minor. One day, the teacher asked the class monitor, a girl, to call 2 boys to help move a stack of test papers from the office. One of the boys directly refused, saying, "Why don't you ask the girls?" The monitor shot back confidently, "Because boys are stronger. What's wrong with doing a bit of work?" Before the boy could reply, Kaido chimed in. "So boys are strong just to carry stuff for girls, and you came back from the office empty-handed? What are you, muscle to generate?" After that incident, boys helped boys, and girls helped girls. That unspoken rule became the new norm. At first, I kept my head down and focused on studying, staying out of the drama. But the girl sitting in front of me, Mia, seemed determined to pick a fight. One time, I was zoning out, staring at the blackboard and thinking about a math problem. Out of nowhere, she twisted around and snapped. "What are you staring at, you creep? What kind of perv stares at a girl like that?" Her voice drew the whole class's attention. Kaido wasn't in the room, so I jabbed my finger toward Mia's face and shouted, "Mia, which damn eye of yours saw me looking at you? If you keep flipping out for no reason, don't blame me for slapping you." Mia scoffed. "If you didn't look, then why are you freaking out? Got super male syndrome or something?" A boy snorted, "Reality check, sweetheart. Guys staring at girls is a thing, sure, but trust me, not you." A girl added, "Look how defensive he is. If he really didn't stare, why is he so worked up?" Just as I was about to argue back, Mia's eyes lit up like she'd found buried treasure. She suddenly snatched my pen off the desk and shouted, "This pen is flashing. It's blinking. There's got to be a camera in here. Liam, you pervert. You're spying on me. Recording me." My rage boiled over. I reached out to take the pen back and explain, but in the very next second, she hurled the pen to the ground, then jumped on it with all her weight. Crack! The pen shattered easily beneath her foot. The bullet comments were still rolling across the screen. "Okay, Mia might be a bit bratty now, but come on, she's just a girl. A little attitude is totally normal." But this time, I couldn't hold it in anymore. I stood up, swung my arm back, and slapped Mia hard across the face. It cut through the air like a whip crack, a thunderclap that left the whole room in stunned silence. Her face instantly swelled up from the force. I'd been training in martial arts with Kaido for years. Even our coach said I had talent. That slap, thrown with everything I had, was my highest form of respect for her. The bullet comments exploded like fireworks. Wait, what happened to our weak, pitiful male lead? No, no, no. His character arc just completely collapsed. He just slapped her that hard. How can there possibly be a redemption arc later where some girl falls for him after overcoming a million obstacles? But the truth is, I never wanted some brain-dead, Clycardan story arc. I just want people who do wrong to face real consequences. Chapter 7. My father was called into school. When he got there, he gave me a savage beating. He cursed, "You useless piece of trash. How dare you get into a fight at school?" All he cared about was not having to pay compensation. Mia was from a rich family, someone he absolutely didn't dare to offend. The teacher pointed at my face and yelled, "Raised by a mom, but clearly never taught by one. Acting like a creep at this age. You'll be in jail by the time you're grown." I stood there in the office. The windows were shut, but I felt wind slicing through from all directions, just like the emptiness inside me. Was I wrong? I hit Mia, but I couldn't fight all of them. I quietly hid my bruises, not realizing a familiar figure had flashed by just outside the window. Now I had pride. I didn't want Kaido to see me like this. Chapter 8. On Monday, Kaido gave a speech under the national flag as the school's student representative. He stood under the blazing sun, grinning, radiant, confident, and proud. Even though we wore the same school uniform, he was on a whole different level from me. Mia turned and rolled her eyes. She sneered, "See that? You're just a filthy rat from the gutter. Can you see the gap between you and Kaido now? Don't think that just because you follow him around every day you're his friend, or that you're suddenly rich and charming. You're nothing but a loser, a mediocre man with delusional confidence. I lowered my head, the same one I used to lift just to look up at Kaido. Yeah, maybe I really was meant to die young, buried under dirt and forgotten. What right did I have to stand beside someone like Kaido? But in the next moment, I heard Kaido speak. His voice was like a hammer falling to the ground. He said loudly, I was falsely accused by one of my classmates, Mia. I was just looking at the blackboard during class, and she accused me of harassing her, of peeping at her. Then she said my pen had a hidden camera in it, and without even asking, she smashed it. So what now? Am I supposed to attend class with my eyes shut? But my teacher didn't ask what happened. He just insulted me, said I was raised without morals, said I was acting like a pervert. So today, I want to ask everyone here, the whole school, was I being a pervert? Chapter 9. No one expected Kaido to say those things right there in front of the entire school. In an instant, the whole school was in an uproar. Students murmured in shock, and everyone in our class turned in unison to stare at Mia. Her face froze. The pale fat on her cheeks trembled with visible fear. The principal's face turned ashen. He instinctively glanced toward one side of the stage. That day's flag-raising ceremony ended differently than any before. For the first time, there was no long-winded speech from school officials. The assembly was dismissed in a hurry. Later, I found out that Kaido's parents, the same ones who had donated 2 entire buildings to the school, were visiting that day. They were furious. Kaido was summoned to the principal's office. Mia and I were called in with him. Our homeroom teacher, who had been so vicious just days ago, now wore a nervous, tight-lipped expression. She said, Principal, I never said anything like that to Kaido. Kaido is an excellent student, outstanding performance, great attitude. Of course, I wouldn't say something like that to him. I only scolded Liam. The moment those words left her mouth, Kaido stepped forward. His back was straight, his voice calm and sharp. He smiled and said, What makes Liam different from me? Why should he be the one to endure verbal abuse from a teacher? Is this what our school stands for? Letting girls slander boys? Replacing truth with gender bias? Automatically assuming the boy is guilty. For the first time, I saw young Master Ito being completely ruthless. The principal wiped away invisible sweat from his forehead, then cast a nervous glance at Kaido's parents, who were sitting in silence off to the side, cold and distant. He stammered, Of course not. Our school would never condone any kind of abuse against students. That day, I watched as the once arrogant homeroom teacher lowered her proud head and apologized to me. That day, Mia was forced to apologize as well. The teacher was fired. Mia transferred to another school. Kaido's parents, from beginning to end, merely swept their eyes coldly across me once. That day the sun hung high in the sky, blazing, blinding. Kaido said, Liam, did you see it? Today, they apologized to you. But not because of me. They apologized because of my parents' status. That's why we need to grow stronger. Strong enough that no one would dare to mistreat us. We have to take our fate into our own hands. That day, I looked up at the burning sun above me and thought, I will never be that pathetic male lead in some tragic plot who suffers for a girl, struggles through hell, and dies miserably in the end. Chapter 10. It was also on that day that I found out everything I had was being funded by Kaido and had absolutely nothing to do with the Ito family. I was confused. Kaido just smiled, his eyes shining so brightly, it was like stars lived in them. He said, That's because I think you're worth it. I've got great taste, you know. I think, my friend, you are no ordinary person. So let's just call it an early investment. I kept replaying those words, my friend, over and over in my mind. The barren, desolate plains inside my heart suddenly seemed to sprout green shoots all at once. For those words alone, I swore I wouldn't let Kaido down. After that, Kaido became busier. He no longer went to martial arts training with me often. He didn't even show up at school. The next time I saw him was at the school gala. He wore a custom-tailored suit and stood under the spotlight, gleaming like a star. Once again, I was reminded of the distance between us. But this time, once his piano performance ended, I went backstage and found him. I couldn't hold back my excitement as I told him what had happened recently. I said, The teacher said I'm good at math. He took me to a math competition and I got 3rd place. Kaido smiled and patted my shoulder. That's amazing, Liam. You really nailed it. I still didn't understand why Kaido kept enrolling me in martial arts classes, but if Kaido arranged it, there must be a reason. I was his little brother. I just had to make him proud. Every year during the school's annual physical exams, Kaido always brought me along. He'd say with total confidence, "You're my little brother. Of course, you're getting checked up with me." We both turned out fine in our reports. Sometimes I felt like he cared more about my results than his own. If I had even a small issue, he'd pull the doctor aside and ask questions in detail. I asked him why. He responded all high and mighty. "Isn't it only natural that I care about my little brother? If you get sick or injured, who's going to run errands for me?" But by then, Kaido hardly asked me to run errands anymore. Chapter 11. The year we graduated middle school and entered high school, I got into the same prestigious private high school as Kaido thanks to my outstanding math scores. But we were placed in different classes. This school was full of students from wealthy, powerful families. I was the only one with a humble background. During the placement exams at the beginning of the year, I ranked first in the entire grade. Standing in front of the honor roll, I spotted Kaido. His gaze paused on my name. The corner of his mouth lifted ever so slightly, but there was also a look of subtle relief. In that moment, I thought, he's hiding something from me. I quickly scanned the list and found Kaido's name too. His academic performance wasn't bad at all. When he turned around, he saw me too. I waved at him, about to walk over and say hi, but the school bell rang. His classroom was on one side, mine on the other. We were swept apart by the crowd. Even so, I still caught sight of Kaido giving me a big thumbs up. His mouth moved just enough for me to read his lips. "You're awesome." Chapter 12. Once high school started, Kaido seemed to get even busier. He was always so exceptional, always shining like a star. Just in high school, and he was already starting his own company. I didn't understand any of that. All I could do was throw myself into studying. Thankfully, I was decent at it. I worked like hell, pouring everything into my academics. I kept winning award after award in math competitions. One time, after returning to school from an intensive training camp, I was cornered in the classroom by a few punks. I blocked a backpack that was being swung at me. The guy in front, clearly the ringleader, cursed at me. "Liam, are you fing looking for death? You dared mess with my girl." I didn't even know who he was, much less who his girl was supposed to be. Seeing me stay silent, he grew more furious. "Pin him down. I'm gonna loosen his bones for him." At first, the other guys hesitated. Then the ringleader sneered. "What are you afraid of? Kaido's not even here. He's just Kaido's lapdog. So what if we beat him up?" My eyes narrowed. Turns out all those years of martial arts training hadn't been wasted. A few petty bullies playing tough at school were no match for me. I grabbed whatever I could from nearby, and within seconds, I'd taken down every single one of them. I thought that would be the end of it, but it only got worse. They started stuffing dead rats in my desk drawer, smearing glue on my chair, putting thumbtacks in my locker, and deliberately knocking over my lunch in the cafeteria. They were doing everything they could to mess with my life. So I gathered the evidence and went straight to the principal. I said, "Principal, I think it's time I transfer to another school." Chapter 13. By then it was already our final year of high school. The school's academic performance hadn't been great in recent years, but I wasn't just a top student. My math talent had become a source of pride for the school. The principal tensed the moment he heard me mention transferring. He asked what was going on. I submitted all the evidence. When the boys were called in, they still looked angry and unrepentant. Once again, I stood inside the principal's office, but this time Kaido wasn't standing beside me. Still, I stood tall, back straight, voice firm. The principal scolded the group harshly. They were all written up and had their parents notified. After this, I realized something. Once you have ability, standing tall isn't so hard. When you have value, the world starts making room for you. But Kaido still found out. He made a special trip back to school. Though he looked a little worn from travel, his gaze was sharp. He already resembled a calm, composed adult. He looked at me just like he did when we were 8 years old. He asked, "Little bro, you got bullied? Why didn't you tell me?" But this time, our eyes met on equal ground. I smiled and said, "Didn't want to bother you over something so small." I don't know what Kaido did behind the scenes, but the next day, every one of those students who had been messing with me never showed up again. I tried to give all my competition prize money to Kaido, but he shoved my bank card right back into my hand. He said, "We're brothers, you start talking money. It gets awkward. You know me. I'm not in this for the money." Chapter 14. Kaido rushed back to school as soon as he heard I got admitted through recommendation. He was carrying a brand new, unopened laptop box as he walked toward me. When he handed it over, it felt heavy in my hands. I hesitated to take it. He frowned impatiently and said, "This thing's just collecting dust in my room. Sooner or later, I was going to toss it. Might as well give it to you. Either take it or chuck it for me." It was the first time I ever had an electronic device of my own. It wasn't until much later that I realized this had always been a knot in his heart, a lingering attachment from the past, and also a farewell long overdue. He untied that knot, and in doing so pushed me farther ahead. Facing the sunlight, he finally told me his plans. He said, "I'm going to study abroad." I looked at the light radiating from him and caught up to walk alongside him. I said, "Congrats, Kaido." Kaido stopped walking, tilted his head to look at me, and for the first time there was a trace of concern in his eyes. I always felt like there was a sadness in Kaido's gaze that didn't belong to someone his age. Sometimes it even felt like he was looking past me, seeing someone else entirely. I couldn't help but hit him with a surprise shoulder slam sneak attack. He dodged with a side step, finally showing a more playful, youthful side of himself. He laughed, "Ha ha ha, Liam. Didn't think you had that move. Color me surprised." Seeing the smile on his face, I didn't mess around any further. We threw our arms over each other's shoulders, just like we used to back in elementary school. I said, "Kaido, I'm no longer the Liam who didn't even have enough to eat. Now you can just go do what you want. No need to worry about me. I can't live under your protection forever. I want to be a friend worthy of standing shoulder to shoulder with you." Kaido smiled. There was pride in his eyes, and under the blazing sun, a new burst of energy in his spirit. He laughed and said, "Guess that's my bad then. I was just worried you'd run into trouble after I leave the country." He paused. Then also, "You've got to be careful around your dad." Kaido looked like he wanted to say more, but in the end, he just opened his mouth and said nothing at all. Chapter 15. Kaido went abroad on the first day of school. I once again saw the long-lost barrage of comments. One read, "Finally, the plot's reaching the moment when the male and female leads meet." Another commented, "The male lead is seriously just a walking tragedy. His dad is a total POS, doesn't even believe the MC is his biological son, and refuses to take a paternity test. Now he's even trying to get someone to harvest his kidney. Wait, what college is this? Peking University?" I remember in my first read-through he was just going to an average uni. I looked at the screen, my eyes narrowing. Over the years, thanks to Kaido, my dad hadn't dared to bother me. But the day I went to register, sure enough, I saw him. He looked even older than before. Clearly life hadn't treated him kindly these years, but the menace in his eyes was stronger than ever. When I was a kid, I used to fear him, but now I wasn't scared anymore. Then I saw more comments. "MC better not start feeling sorry for this guy. Don't go eat with him. He's trying to pay off his gambling debt. He drugged the soda. You'll wake up missing something vital." I looked at Pablo. It was hard to believe people still did this kind of illegal organ trade in this day and age, but then again, he was a gambler and a twisted, insane one at that. What couldn't he do? I went with Pablo to eat. He pulled out a bottle of Coke from his pocket and handed it to me, a sycophantic grin plastered on his face. He said, "Liam, you're really making your old man proud. Someone told me you got into Peking University. I remember when you were little, you loved this stuff, right? I wanted it when I was little because I always saw other kids drinking it, and I never got to. Whenever I said I wanted a Coke, Pablo would respond with a beating and a stream of insults." Chapter 16. I pretended to pass out, and Pablo loaded me into a car. It was only when we arrived that I realized this deal was worth 500,000 yuan. Once I confirmed Pablo had received the money, that very night I took down every last one of the criminals who'd arranged the sale. They were brutish, but no match for me. I called the cops, hired a lawyer, took Pablo and the rest to court. Caught red-handed in an illegal human trafficking deal, Pablo was sentenced to 10 years in prison. Chapter 17. The day Pablo was sent to prison, the barrage of comments reappeared. "What's going on? How's Luna supposed to save the male lead now?" Another read, "How is the romance plot supposed to move forward like this? I thought I might never have anything to do with this so-called female lead, but then the day came. In this supposedly safe and peaceful age, I was mugged just outside the campus gates by a few punks wielding knives. Just as I was about to take them on, a stunning woman with ethereal charm appeared, practically glowing with a magnetic aura. I knew this was the legendary Luna. A few bodyguards followed behind her. She shouted, "Stop! Stop this right now!" But before Luna could even finish, I grabbed the punk in the lead and flipped him clean over my shoulder. Bang! He slammed into the ground. The punks froze, startled, backing away in fear. Luna's words got stuck in her throat. I gave her a cold glare and said, "Are you telling me to stop? I suggest you stay out of things that don't concern you." Luna couldn't help but take a step back. The punks, relying on their numbers, didn't even have a real plan. They were easy to handle. Some of them even looked like they were about to call me boss on the spot. I brushed non-existent dust from my hands, gave them a lazy look, and said, "I don't take disciples." Chapter 18. That day I didn't even spare Luna a second glance. But then the Liu family's butler came looking for me. He handed me a body double contract. They wanted me to act as Luna's stand-in. They were offering 200,000 yuan per month. I raised an eyebrow and said, "That's a decent chunk of money. But are you guys legally illiterate or something? This contract is invalid. What's the point of making it so formal? Makes it easier to sue me later if I breach it. Sorry, I don't have time to play some identity-swapping game with your spoiled little princess." And again the barrage of comments popped up. Honestly, I think this is pretty good. Liam isn't that spineless pushover male lead anymore. I've always hated characters like Luna. But then there were some that read, "I want to see the romance plot. How's there going to be one like this?" Because I needed to work part-time, I chose to live off campus. But that day at home, Luna actually came to see me herself. When I opened the door, there she was, dressed in high-end designer fashion. She wrinkled her nose in disdain at the tiny rental apartment. She rolled her eyes and said, "A broke loser like you still acts all cocky? What? Not satisfied with the price? If you can act like Kaido well enough and be my obedient little dog, I might even pay you extra." At that moment, I couldn't hold it in anymore. What kind of trash is this? How could someone like her be the female lead? She insulted me, and in doing so, insulted Kaido too. I pulled out my phone, ready to call the police. She just sneered and scoffed. "If you call the cops, I don't mind having you locked up instead." After all, she suddenly yanked open the button at her collar and said, "You won't be able to prove you didn't do something to me." She let out a cold laugh and said, "You've got to sign the contract or rot in jail." Psychopath. An actual certifiable psychopath. My brows furrowed tightly. I was seething inside. Absolutely fing insane. And of course the comments were flying. Luna is absolutely disgusting. So if the male lead refuses to be her lapdog, she's going to frame him. It's like the police and the law vanish whenever it involves Luna in this story. Another comment. Even outside of a novel world, don't tell me stuff like this doesn't happen in real life. And another. I just want to transmigrate into the book and slap Luna twice. Funny thing is, so do I. But obviously not here and now. So I instantly switched expressions, putting on a flattering grin. "Missy Lou, what I'm trying to say is, being your dog? That's not exciting at all. Why don't we play something a bit more thrilling?" I raised an eyebrow. "Outdoors? Risky? Exhibitionist?" Luna's eyes widened. A flash of something passed through her gaze. She bit her lip and said, "Liam, you're so bad. I like that. I honestly don't get it, not at all. How the hell is someone this manipulative and shallow the female lead? If Kaido ended up marrying someone like her, he'd be nauseated for the rest of his life." Chapter 19. Luna and I went out to the countryside. I was the one driving. I even brought a rope. Since in this world the police don't seem to work when it comes to the female lead, then I'd take matters into my own hands. Right now, I was incredibly grateful that Kaido had taught me martial arts since I was a kid. Out in the wild, no police, this was the end of the road for Luna. I yanked Luna, still blushing like she was ready for some kinky scene, straight out of the car. Didn't give her a second to react. I raised my arm and swung without mercy. Left slap, right slap. 2 clean hits across the face. She collapsed unconscious right there. The comments section exploded. What just happened? Is this outdoors risky exhibitionist? I paid money and this is what I get. Others wrote, "Damn, those slaps were satisfying. Thank God Kaido stopped the MC from becoming a simp. I want a dozen brothers like this. Wearing gloves, I cleaned Luna up a bit. Then I tied her to a tree with the rope. I even poured water on her to wake her up. Outdoors risky exhibitionist. When Luna finally realized where she was, she screamed, "Liam, how dare you treat me like this? When I get back, you're dead. Your whole family is dead." I ignored her crazy Yandra lines. I pulled out a knife and traced it gently over her skin. I said, "I've taken pictures of everything. If you ever pull that manipulative crap in front of me again, I'll make sure the entire world sees what the noble Lou really looks like. Of course, if you want to go out with some dignity, I could also end it for you right now." I was smiling. Luna burst into tears. I stepped back, pinching my nose in disgust. When she looked around and saw that we were truly alone, she finally realized I was dead serious. I really could kill her. She started sobbing. "I'm sorry, Liam. I'm so sorry. I won't do it again. I swear. Please, just let me go." Slap. Another one across the face. I spat. "Fking disgusting." I pressed the knife to her throat. I said, "Come near me again, and I will kill you." Then I took all her jewelry, pawned it for some decent secondhand cash. The next day, I was kind enough to call the Liu family's butler and let him know where to pick her up. I waited another 2 days. As expected, in a world like this, when it came to Luna, the cops were useless. No one came for me, and Luna didn't dare show her face again. Chapter 20. In my senior year, Kaido came back. By then, he was no longer the same person as before. Now he was someone the Liu family wouldn't dare mess with. In just 1 year, he dismantled the Liu Corporation. The Liu Group declared bankruptcy. Luna lost her female lead Halo and was exposed for numerous illegal activities. She was sent to prison, sewing clothes behind bars. She would never be a threat to us again. The story's plot wrapped up. The barrage of comments rolled in one last time. It's over. This storyline was actually pretty fresh. Tell me this isn't way better than the old version. Even though the so-called plot was over, my life with Kaido wasn't. I planned to continue my research in mathematics. I had some real talent in this field. Over the years, I had won countless awards, and at nearly every award ceremony, Kaido was there, sitting in the audience, clapping, his eyes full of pride and approval. Every single time I'd thank just one person, I'd say, "Thank you to my best friend, Mr. Kaido." Chapter 21. That year, he bought a villa. On New Year's Day, he invited me to spend the holiday with him. That night, the moon was incredibly bright, so bright it seemed almost unreal. I ate 5 huge plates of dumplings. They tasted amazing. After we were full and satisfied, Kaido brought out 2 full boxes of fireworks. He handed me a match and said, "Just like when we were kids, one for each of us." The fireworks lit up. Boom. The sky burst open with round after round of dazzling light, as if mysterious gates of time and space were opening above us. Kaido was smiling, his expression more relaxed than I'd ever seen before. He said, "Liam, aren't these fireworks just beautiful?" I watched as they exploded across the sky, brief moments of brilliance, then silence. Above it all hung a full moon, brighter and more radiant than even the fireworks. Kaido seemed to be waiting for my answer. I turned to look at him, smiled, and said, "Of course they're beautiful." Extra chapter. Kaido. I didn't find out Luna had a boyfriend until the day I returned to China. I'll admit it, I did like Luna a little. She told me, "There's this guy who keeps clinging to me. Can you pretend to be my boyfriend for a while?" Back then, I felt my heart skip a beat, and I said yes. I had no idea that decision would end up pushing someone else straight into the abyss. Luna said she had already broken up with Liam. She said he was a psycho ex-boyfriend who stalked her and threatened her constantly. He seemed genuinely distressed by his harassment. I had never met Liam, so I naturally leaned toward believing Luna. What I didn't know at the time was that our mutual friends, in order to curry favor with me, were constantly targeting Liam behind his back. One night, I was driving Luna home from a bar. She was completely drunk. That's when I saw him. A man who looked a bit like me, maybe 50% similar, but his eyes were full of sorrow. It was raining outside that night. He had clearly been waiting for a long time. He handed me a towel, then quietly went to the kitchen to make me a bowl of hot soup to warm up. He gave me a bitter smile and said he would leave. His back as he walked away looked hollow, like a stray dog with nowhere to go. That was when I started thinking maybe Liam wasn't as horrible as Luna had painted him to be. But I didn't dig deeper, not until I heard it from someone else. Liam had been Luna's stand-in because she loved me too much. So I started digging, and then I learned Liam hadn't stayed with her out of love. He had been forced into it. The whole thing felt absurd, completely insane. That's when it hit me. I was just the toxic second male lead in some twisted romance novel. I didn't want to be the villain standing in the way of a guy like Liam, a guy who actually had loyalty and guts. So I asked Liam what he wanted. I helped him break free from Luna, got him a job, helped him study the things he actually wanted to pursue. But I never expected that by cutting ties with Luna and taking Liam with me, she'd accuse me of breaking her heart, and Lasignier would fly into a rage and start attacking my family's company. My family went bankrupt. Liam and I, two guys with nothing left, ended up in a small city in the south, working whatever jobs we could find just to survive. During the day we worked, at night we played coop games together. Honestly, those weren't bad days. But Liam kept losing weight. Eventually, I realized he'd been hiding the fact that he was coughing up blood. I rushed him to the hospital. Diagnosis: terminal stage stomach cancer. He looked at me with guilt in his eyes. I never planned to get sick, Kaido, but this time I think I really might go first. I told him I was scared, but he just smiled. I'm not in pain, really, I'm not. How could he not be? He had suffered too much in this life. He was simply used to the pain. In those last days, we stopped going out. We stayed in and tried to finish every game we'd never completed, so we wouldn't leave behind any regrets. Almost all our money was spent on his medication. After one accident burned out our graphics card, we didn't even have the money to repair the computer. By that point, I had made up my mind. I was going to kidnap Luna, force the Liu family to cough up the money to save Liam. But Liam saw through me. He shook his head and said, Kaido, I've never had a proper Lunar New Year. I've never lit fireworks before. New Year's is just around the corner. Can you wait until after the eve to go find her? On Lunar New Year's Eve, I tried making dumplings using a recipe I found online. They turned out ugly. During boiling, they all burst open. The meat stuffing mixed into the soup, making it cloudy and murky. The taste was mediocre at best. But that night, Liam, against all expectations, finished a huge bowl. He laughed and said, Kaido, who knew you had this kind of skill? Next year, I want another batch of your dumplings. I smiled and replied, deal. After dinner, I brought out the cheap fireworks I had bought. We went out to the concrete lot next to our rental. He sat in his wheelchair, smiling as he watched me. I walked over to light the fireworks. Boom. A dazzling burst of light exploded in the sky. I turned back to Liam and asked, Liam, aren't these fireworks beautiful? But before he could see the fireworks I had lit just for him, his eyes had already closed, and they never opened again.